Of the Tzadik Tes, Samit Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. Omar Rava, Pshitali, it's obvious to me, Mayim al Gabi Mayim, when you have water, so you have water on top of water, basically, in any cup or in any water, any pool of water. Hainu Anachasan, that's the place where water settles, and it's Hanacha. So meaning if you pick up part of that water and take it out into the Rosh Hashanah, you're picking up a water from a place where that's where the water is settled. It qualifies for an akira, and you pick it up and you put it into the Rosh Hashanah, you'll be chayiv. Egos al gabi mayim. We had this Gemara before actually on Daf, where is it? Daf Hey, Daf Vav or something. Okay. So egos al gabi mayim. What's if you have a walnut that's on top of water? So and then you take that walnut and you pick it up from the water and you place it down. Lav hainu anachasam. That's not a place where the walnut is settled. It's floating and it's not settled in one place, and therefore that's not the hanocha of the egos. And when you pick it up, you haven't lifted up something which is munach, which is settled in a place. Egos bekeli tzafal gabi mayim. If you have a walnut that's inside the keli, and the keli is floating on the water, and now you picked up the egos from the keli and you took it out into the Rosh Hashanah. What's the din? Mahu. Mi amrinan, do I say basa egos is linan? Look at the nut itself. Where's the nut? It's inside a keli, and therefore it's settled in the keli, and you did it on a malacha. V'hanayich, it's settled there. Oy dilma basa keli is linan. The egos is inside a keli, and the keli is on the water, which is floating, and it's not settled. V'haloynayich, it did not settle over there. Tekel. So that question is not resolved. Another case, shemen al gabi yayin. If you have oil that's floating on top of wine, of course the nature of oil is that it doesn't mix with the liquid, it remains floating on the top. So the same question applies over here. Do I say that because it's floating on top and it's touching, it's one entity, it's all like one liquid, and therefore if you remove the oil, you did a proper akira? Or do I say, no, no, the shemen and the yayin are two separate entities, and therefore you did not do a proper akira because it's not settled there.
Why is it not wine? Why do you use wine?
Only because the case in the Mishnah that it's about to quote says wine, but the same shaila would be oil and water as well. Same question would apply. So the Gemara says Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri v'Rabbana. This is the argument between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Rabbanan, where they speak about this exact subject regarding tumah and tara. It says in the Mishnah, Shemen shetzaf al gabi yayin. If you have oil that's floating on top of wine, v'naga tful yayin b'shemen, and then you have a tful yayin that touches the oil. Now, when the tful yayin touches the oil, he's such a low level of tumah. He went to the mikveh that day, and he can't yet eat truma until at night if he's a kayin. And over here we're talking about the oil and the wine, which is truma. And the question is, the tful yayin touches the oil. He did not touch the wine. Should I say the moment he touched the oil, it's as if he touched the oil and the wine, because the oil and the wine is one entity here, they're touching each other? Or should I say, no, he touched the oil, and then the oil is a secondary thing that touches the wine, and it's not going to make it tummy, because the oil becomes tummy, and it's not strong enough of a tumah to transfer the tumah to the wine. It's metame, but it's only poisel, meaning it makes something tummy, it doesn't make it tummy enough to be metame something else. That's why there's the question there. So, let's see again. Shemen shetzaf al gabi yayin v'naga tful yayin b'shemen. He touched the oil. Lo pasal el shemen. He only made the oil itself tamei. Whenever you make something tamei, to the extent that it can't make something else tamei, the lashon that the Mishnah uses is pasal, not tamei. So it only makes the oil tamei, and then the wine is a separate thing. They are connected one to the other. The oil and the wine are chibur, and therefore the oil and the wine both become pasal, become tamei, because it's one entity. So the same thing applies over here regarding Shabbos, regarding taking off the oil from the wine. You have a pit in the Rosh Hashanah that's deep 10 tfachim, and it's wide 8 tfachim. So this is a Rosh Hashanah. It has the dimensions for a Rosh Hashanah. He threw inside of it a mat that fell inside the boat. Chayev, you're chayev. This case is pashut. The main chiddush is the next case. But how about a case of chilka b'machzeles? He threw it in, and it had such perfect aim that it landed right in the center of the boat, and now this machzeles, this mat, is serving as a separation, the two parts of the boat, right? A wall right in the center of the boat. So now the question is he going to be chayev or not? What's the issue? Once it serves as a separation in the middle of the bayit, it doesn't have the minimum dimensions that a Rosh Hashanah needs. Because on both sides of this partition now, you have less than 4 by 4 tvachim. It had exactly 8 by 8 tvachim. Now with a partition in between, it doesn't have those dimensions on either side anymore. So Abaye says potter. So therefore he's going to be potter. Now the Gemara relates this back to a shaila that we had before that Rabbi Yochanan spoke about. Rabbi Yochanan says, what happens in the case where a person has a boir in the Rishus HaRabim, which is 9 tvachim deep, or 10 tvachim deep actually, and he throws a layer of earth into the boir, and by it landing at the bottom of the pit, it turns it into 9 tvachim deep. It fills it and it's only 9 tvachim deep. Rabbi Yochanan had a shaila about that. It wasn't so pashatim whether you chayav a potter. So the Gemara says, Le Abaye, here, Abaye, according to his opinion, the pshitale the machzelas mevatla mechitza. It's obvious to him that when the mechitza lands and it creates this partition that takes away the minimum size that it needs for the Rishus HaYachid. So kol shekain chulya de mevatla mechitza. For sure, the case that Rabbi Yochanan was inquiring about, when you threw in a layer of dirt into a boir and it's there at the bottom, and now it's only 9 tvachim high and not 10 tvachim high, for sure that's going to be mevatla the mechitza. The earth at the bottom of a boir is much more permanent and part of the existence of the boir than a mechitza that's in the middle of a boir. So if the mechitza in the middle of a boir, Abaye considers to be a partition that now takes away from its dimensions, for sure the earth that lands at the bottom of the boir, that you'd be potter. Le Rabbi Yochanan, on the other hand, Rabbi Yochanan, the miboya le chulya, when he had a question regarding the layer of earth that you threw into the boir, and it takes away from the height, and it's only 9, machzeles pshita delay mevatla mechitzta. So in that case, Rabbi Yochanan had an iboya, because over there's a svara to say that the earth actually becomes part of the boir, and it takes away the dimensions of the boir. Regarding a machzeles, it would be pashat that even Rabbi Yochanan would agree that it's not mevatla the mechitza of the boir, and he would be chayiv. True, it's separating, it's making this partition in between, but it's not part of the boir. It's a partition that happens to be inside in that position. But it's not like the earth that becomes part and parcel of the very existence of the boir itself. And in this case, Rabbi Yochanan would argue on Abaye and say that you'd be chayiv. Amar Abaye, another case Abaye said, boir b'Rishus HaRabim, a pit in the Rishus HaRabim, which is a muka sara rechav arba. It's deep 10 tvachim and it's wide 4 tvachim, so it has the full dimensions needed for the Rishus HaYachid. Melei mayim, but it's full of water. V'zarak l'toichad, he threw inside this pit. Chayiv, you're chayiv, even though it's filled with water. That the water does not take away from whatever height and the depth that it is. Yeah, it's still rishus for itself. So you're going to be chayiv. Milei peiris, however, if it's filled with fruits or any other solid objects, v'zarak l'toichad, you throw into it potter. You potter. The peiris actually fill it and it takes away whatever dimensions it has. Mevatli.
Like a post in Rishus HaRabim? Why isn't it like a post in Rishus HaRabim? If you throw on a roof of a house, you're not chayiv? But that's because of good art.
I'm not sure what you're saying. I'm not sure. One second. Let's see the Gemara over here. So peiris mevatli mechitzta. What it's saying of it, my time, I skipped the line, sorry. My time, what's the reason for this difference? Mayim loy mevatli mechitzta. Water does not take away from the mechitza that's there. It's liquid and it can go through it. Whatever you throw inside could land at the bottom. Right? Or others say that the reason is even when you have water inside, you can see the mechitzas through the water. But peiris mevatli mechitzta. But the peiris are mevatli the mechitza. Tanya nami hachi, we learned this clearly in a braysa. Zeirik min hayam leisratya. If you throw from a yam, which is usually a carmelis, as we'll see soon in the Gemara on Amud Beis, a yam has the halach of a carmelis, and you threw it into a sratya, into a highway, into a Rishus HaRabim, or min sratya liyam, from a highway into the yam, you potter. From Rishus HaRabim to a carmelis, you potter. Shimon says there'll be a case when you chayiv. Im yesh b'makim shizarak o makasara v'rochav arba chayiv. If in the place in the yam where you threw right over there is walls of the yam that are tall 10 tvachim and it's wide 4 tvachim, then you will be chayiv. So therefore we see that Rab Shimon says this exact thing. Even though it's filled with water, nevertheless, if there's an area where it's clear that it has a depth of 10 tvachim under the inside the water, and it's tall and it has the right width of 4 tvachim, you'll be chayiv. Zok Mishnah, Zaydik, Arba Ames Bekaisel. We had this a few times already. A person throws in the Rishus HaRabim 4 Ames.
If it freezes, then suddenly it would
No, it's different. Of course not. Yeah, exactly. So next time when you go to the mikveh and it's frozen water, then it's yeah. Hazaydik Arba Ames Bekaisel. When you throw 4 Ames in the Rishus HaRabim and it lands on a wall. Lamayla Masarat Tvachim. if that landed on a wall higher than 10 tvachim, kizayrik ba'aver. You're throwing it in the ear, it's a makim p'tur above 10 tvachim, you pater. Lamata masara tvachim, if you threw it in the Rosh Hashanah and it landed on the wall below 10 tvachim, kizayrik ba'aretz, it's like you threw it on the ground and you'll be chayev. Hazayrik ba'aretz, you threw 4 amas in the Rosh Hashanah on the ground, arba amas chayev, you'll be chayev. So we had this question already before as well. Frek the Gemara, v'ha loy noch, if you're throwing it and it lands, it lands on the side of the wall, it didn't land there. It bounces off, but it didn't land there. It's talking about a fatty fig that sticks to the wall. If you threw something above 10 tvachim, and over there it landed inside a small hole in a wall. So we're talking about a wall that is above 10 tvachim here, right? And it has the dimensions. It's wide enough that it's 4 tvachim wide. Okay, so if this little crevice that it fell into in the wall would be carved out a little bit more, carved out by 4 by 4, so the place that it landed would be a Rishus HaYachid. It's 10 tvachim high, it's above 10 tvachim, and it's 4 by 4 tvachim. But over here, this little crack in the wall that it fell into is not 4 by 4 tvachim wide. It's just a small crack inside of the wall, and that's where it landed. So, what's going to be the halacha? So he says, Bana l'machlokes Rav Meir v'Rabbanan. This is a machlokes about a mezuzah that you have regarding this case that Rav Meir and Rabbanan argued about. We had this also in the Gemara before already. What's the halacha regarding a mezuzah? What are the minimum dimensions of a doorway to be chayiv in a mezuzah? It has to be 10 tvachim tall and 4 tvachim wide. If you have an archway, where if you look at the middle of the archway, at the top, it is 10 tvachim high, but at the sides, it's not 10 tvachim wide. It's 4 tvachim wide, but at the sides of the archway, it's not 4 tvachim wide. So what's going to be the din? Is it chayiv mezuzah or not? Says Rab Meir, the Amar, Rab Meir says, chaykikin lahashlam. We imagine as if that part of the archway at the sides are carved out and it is fully 10 tvachim by 4 tvachim around and around, not just in the middle. So you mashlim it and it's chayiv. So over here as well, you'll be mechayiv. In our case as well, when it fell into this crack in the wall above 10 tvachim, and the wall is wide enough to be 4 by 4 tvachim, although there's only a little opening of a small crack, but it's as we're mashlim it, we imagine it as if it's fully open because the wall contains that amount in it. The Rabbanan that say regarding mezuzah, we do not imagine because it contains that space. We don't imagine as if it's carved out. So in our case, he also won't be chayiv. It doesn't have the minimum dimension of 4 by 4 tvachim. Tani nami hachi, we learned this clearly in a brayse. Zorak l'mayla masara, he threw something and it landed in a place, in a wall that's higher than 10 tvachim. V'holcha v'nocha b'chol kolshu, and it landed in a small hole there. Rab Meir mechayiv. Rab Meir says you're going to be chayiv, like the case of mezuzah. The chachamim paitrim, and chachamim say you are pater. Amar Rav Yud Amar Rav.
How are those cases similar to each other?
It's just a question of whether you. It's not. It's mezuzah and the haitzah have nothing to do with each other.
One is an archway that is basically an opening, and one is a hole in a wall. Like
okay, the Gemara does bring up that difference, I believe, before. Good point. I believe the Gemara does bring up that question, that it's not necessarily compared. If I remember correctly, the Gemara brings that up before. Okay, but here the Gemara just says that we do compare them. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav as follows: Tail hamislakit. When you have the Rishus Harabim, right? So the Rishus Harabim is not always flat. You have hills, mounds going up and down. So you have to have a mound in the Rishus Harabim. So it's an incline that hamislakit asara mitoich arba. It's an incline. It's this little mound that reaches to the height of 10 tvachim within the space of 4 amas. Okay, so it's
the doorway.
Huh?
Like the doorway. I mean, you're getting
okay.
Always of 10.
Okay.
It's over 4.
Okay. Yeah. So, but the point of here is you can have a mound or incline that goes up very gradually. It reaches to the height of 10 tvachim after 10 amas. It's a very gradual incline. And then you have an incline that's steeper and it reaches that height within 4 amas. So then he says, "V'zarek v'nochal gabav." If you threw from a Rishus Harabim on this little mound, chayiv, you'll be chayiv, because it reaches that height of 10 tvachim within 4 amas. It qualifies for Rishus Yachid for itself. Tanya nami yachi. We learned this also in the brayse. Mavoi sheshavel etoichai. A mavoi, which is an alleyway, the way it was then, and they're built when they had the three sides that were enclosed and one side that was open to the Rishus Harabim. So inside it's flat, it is a flat ground. V'nasem madrein l'Rishus Harabim. But then going down to the Rishus Harabim, it's a slope. You have to go down. Oy sheshav l'Rishus Harabim, or when you enter from the Rishus Harabim into this alleyway, it's flat. But then v'nasem madrein l'toichai, and then there's a slope going down to enter inside the mavoi. Oy say mavoi ein etzarech loy lechi v'loy kaira. So this mavi does not need, on the fourth side of the opening, the usual recognition of whether a post, a lechi, or a kaira, or a cross beam to enclose it to be able to carry in it. Chanina ben Gamliel says, Teil hamislakit asara mitoich arba. If you have a mound that reaches the height of 10, within 4 ames, v'zorek v'nachal gabav, and you throw on top of it, chayiv, you'll be chayiv. So here we see Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel said this halacha as well.
There's no measurements according to the original one.
No, it doesn't say correct. The first thing it doesn't say.
Any
Yeah.
tail can become a kaisel.
You're right. I'm going to have to see in Rashi over here. I'm not 100% sure. Remember now, but it doesn't say. Right. There's a shir in Rashi. Okay. Zok the Mishneh Zorak l'toich daladamis. What happens if a person throws something and his intention was to throw it a space less than 4 amas, within 4 amas, less than the shear to be chayiv. But then his galgal chutzel daladamis, but it rolled outside of the daladamis. Potter. It's going to be potter. That wasn't his intention. As we learned already, the malacha is only if a person does it the way he intended it to do, and he intended it to be less than 4 amas. Chutz l'daladamis. The person intended to throw it outside of the Dalet Amis. V'nis galgal l'toich Dalet Amis, and it flew outside of the Dalet Amis, but then it rolled back into the Dalet Amis. Chayiv, in such a case, he will be chayiv. Okay, and as Rashi here says, we'll see in the Gemara, it's not even talking about a case where a person threw something outside of the Dalet Amis and then it bounced back. We're talking even in a case where you threw sort of a very light object and it's a very windy day and it flies outside of the Dalet Amis. Let's say one of these little airplanes, one of these little paper planes. You threw it outside the Dalet Amis and then the wind blows it right back. So it did fly that space outside the Dalet Amis and then it comes back into the Dalet Amis. You'd be chayiv.
Even without touching the floor.
Yeah, let's see the Gemara here. Correct. Frag the Gemara in this case, in the second case of the Mishnah, when I went out of the Dalet Amis and then it came back, it didn't touch the floor, there was no hanocha. Rabbi Yechanan says, no, but there was a hanocha. It did rest on a mashu. So as Rashi explains, and we'll see it in the Gemara as well, it doesn't mean nachal gabi mashu that it actually had a physical hanocha on something. Nachal gabi mashu means it paused for a moment. When the wind blew it back, so it was going first in one direction, then the wind comes and turns it back. It paused for a second there, and then it came back into the Dalet Amis. That's what he means when he says nachal gabi mashu, and you'll be chayiv. Okay, and as Rashi explains, we're talking about a case where it entered into the place outside of the Dalet Amis below 3 tvachim. Below 3 tvachim, there's lavud, and it paused. It had to have paused there. Tanya Nami Yachi, we learned this as well in Abraisa. Zarak chutzel Dalet Amis, he throws it out and it went outside of Dalet Amis, v'dachfasei haruach, and the wind pushes it back in, v'chnisasei, and it goes back into the Dalet Amis. V'af of pisha chazra v'yitziyasei, even if the wind pushed it back out again, potter, he'll be potter, because it went back in first. Achzasei ruach mashuhu, if when it went outside the Dalet Amis and his intention was to throw it there and the wind held it there, it paused it there outside the Dalet Amis. So over here you see it doesn't mean necessarily that it actually landed, but it paused there outside of the Dalet Amis. Even if it came back in, chayiv, you'll be chayiv.
Why doesn't it mention Kluta?
That's what's coming up right now. Very good. Very good. So the Gemara, Omar Rave said, in connection to what we're learning here, and going back to the concept of Kluta Kemishoncha. So what was the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbanan? Rabbi Akiva says Kluta Kemishoncha. When something is contained in a rishus, it's as if it landed there. And the Rabbanan said we don't say Kluta Kemishoncha. Just because it's contained in the rishus, it's not as if it landed there. So Rava says Toich Gimel Rabbanan. According to the Rabbanan that disagree with the concept of Kluta Kemishoncha, even if it's within 3 tvachim to the ground, Tzarech Hanacha Al Gabe Mashu. It has to have some kind of a hanacha on mashu, which means either that it rests physically or that it pauses. It has to pause over there in order to be chayiv. Okay, so if something's flying downward, there's no way for it to really pause unless it actually lands. So the Rabbanan, basically, the Gemara is saying, is arguing on Rabbi Akiva regarding this concept of Klutke Mishahuncha. Even when it's within 3 Tvachim to the ground, they still will say that you only chayiv if it actually lands. Which would mean, if you remember, we had before in the Braisa where it said clearly that Toich Gimel, they don't argue. The Gemara brought, I think, even 2 Braises where it said Toich Gimel, there's no argument. But Rava is saying that there is an argument, even Toich Gimel seems to be contradicting what it says before. Taisus talks about it, the Rishayim talk about it, but that's what the Rava is saying here. So Yosef Mereima v'ka'amal al-hashmaita. Mereima was sitting and he said this halacha. Amalei Ravina Mereima. So Ravina says to Mereima, Lav Haina Masnisin. Isn't this what we see in the Mishnah here? Right? It said in our Mishnah that it rolled out of the Daled Amos and then it came back in. V'amer Rabbi Yochanan v'hu shenochal gavi mashu. And Rabbi Yochanan says that when it went out of the Daled Amos and then it came back in, you only chayiv if it actually paused there, even if it was within 3 Tvachim to the ground. So Rabbi Yochanan already said this, pshat in our Mishnah. Why did Rava repeat the same thing regarding the opinion of the Rabbanon? Amalei, so he answered him, no, it's not. It's a bit. Rava wanted to say, clarify a point here. What is that? Mizgalgal kamrit. Our Mishnah is talking about something that's rolling or flying in, flying out. Mizgalgal ein seifel lanuach. Mizgalgal, so when something is rolling or flying, it's in the wind, so the wind pushes it this way, pushes it that way. So therefore over there, it wasn't destined to land in the spot that it was outside the Dal Damas, and therefore if it didn't pause there or it didn't rest there, you're not going to be chayiv. Right? Even the Aval Hai, but over here, the case that Rava was talking about, according to the Rabbanon, Kivin the Seifil Lanuach, here he's talking even in a case where it's Kluta and it's going to land over there. So I would think even before it lands, once it reaches within lava to the ground, it's destined to land over there. It's as if it already landed. Therefore he says that no, the malacha is not done until it actually lands to the ground. So now ma'inaf kemina, so it's going to end up landing. So l'chayri is anyway going to be chayiv. Ma'inaf kemina.
It stops.
How is it going to stop?
Outside of our garments.
If a person throws something from a Rishus Yachid to a Rishus Rabim, and it's flying downwards, and it's going to land on the ground, and it's going to hit the ground in mamash in a split second. So he's telling you that you only chayiv once it hits the ground. That's the completion of the malacha, not before. Okay, if a bird comes, no, I hear you. So Rashi here says an afkamina would be legabi a korban chatos. You only chayiv a korban chatos when the person is a shoygig throughout the malacha. If you remember that you did a malacha a second before the malacha is done, you're not chayiv a korban chatos. So if right before it hits the ground he remembers, so he's not going to be chayiv, even though it's already loved. Zog the Mishnah. So now we go to the yam. Hazayrik b'yam arba ames potter. You throw something in a yam, 4 ames, you potter. A yam is a carmelis. It's not a place where the rabbim goes. Has the halach of a carmelis. If you have a pool of water, this is in middle of Rishus Rabim. You have a pool of water and people walk through it. Hazayrik l'toichay dal ames chayiv. So if you throw into it the length of 4 ames in Rishus Rabim, you chayiv. It's considered to be part of the Rishus Rabim. What's considered to be a pool of water that's still part of the Rishus Rabim? If it's not 10 Tvachim deep. So that's something that the people in the Rabbim will walk there. Now, the Mishnah is going to seemingly repeat the exact same thing again. If you have a pool of water and the Rabbim walks through it, if you throw into it, you're chayiv, it's part of the Rishus Rabim. So the Gemara will immediately explain what is the repetition in the Mishnah. Amalei.
They walk through the water?
Yeah, they walk through the water. Many times you walk in the street and there's a puddle. People will walk through the puddle. Amalei ahum Rabbanan l'Rava. One of the Rabbanan said to Rava about this Mishnah here, the obvious repetition in the Mishnah. Bishloimem hiluch trei zimni. The fact that the Mishnah repeats the case, the actual case itself, that there is a place that the fact, just the very fact that people walk through this pool of water in the Rishus Rabim. So the fact that the Mishnah repeats this case twice, so that I can understand. This is what the Mishnah is telling me. The first time around the Mishnah says it. It's teaching me that even walking when it's not comfortable is considered to be a hiluch. It's a place where people walk and therefore it's part of the Rishus Rabim. And then, however, at this point I would still think that if there's a place in the Rosh Hashanah that you could use al yedei adchak, not walk, but you use it al yedei adchak, maybe lo yishmei tashmish. That would not be a place that's part of the Rosh Hashanah. As Rashi here brings, and we had this before, when you have sort of a pole that's in the middle of the Rosh Hashanah where people position their packages with it, exactly. So I would say that that's something that sometimes people could use in the Rosh Hashanah, but it's not part of the Rosh Hashanah. Maybe it's only the actual hiluch where people walk through. So therefore, it says it again to teach me that even that is also a good tashmish. All right, so the Mishnah is saying, repeating it a second time to teach me that it's not only the hiluch, but even the tashmish al yedei adchak, any kind of use in middle of Rosh Hashanah is considered to be part of the Rosh Hashanah. Elo rekak trei zimni lamali. The halacha that it says that has zayrik b'toicha dalar amas chayev regarding this pool of water in the Rosh Hashanah. Why does it say it twice? Lamali. Answers the Gemara, chad b'moisach chama, chad b'moisach shama. We had this also in the Gemara before. Once it's telling me this halacha b'negeiah to the summer, and once it's telling me b'negeiah to the winter. And what's the difference? It's tzrichi, and you need both of them. The Gemara will explain it in two different ways here. If we would only say once in the Mishnah, havamin, I would say hanamil b'moisach chama. Only in the summer will people walk through this pool of water. People do walk through this pool of water to cool themselves off with this water. In the winter, it's freezing cold. Light, people don't want to get themselves wet. They're not going to go into the water. But you could also say the opposite. If it would only tell me in the winter, then I would say, since in the winter people are dirty, it's muddy, and people are dirty anyways, so they'll walk through a puddle of water, they're anyways dirty. In the summer, when it's mostly dry and a person's clothing is clean, so he's not going to want to walk through this pool of water. So therefore, the Mishnah tells me the chiddush that both in the summer and the winter, there are people that walk through this pool of water, and it's part of the Rosh Hashanah. Abai says the pshat on this Mishnah is different. The reason why it repeats it is for the following reason. It's trich. So, I would think to say, Hanemili, if it would only say it once, I would say that maybe this is only Heicha Deloy Havad Dalar Amas. If this pool of water is not 4 amas wide, if it's 4 amas wide, akufi makfile. People are not going to walk through this puddle of water. They're going to go around it. It's small enough, it's narrow enough for people to conveniently walk around it. So therefore, it wouldn't be part of the Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, the Mishnah says it a second time to emphasize that the only thing that matters is the depth. If it's 10 tefachim deep, people don't walk into that. If it's not 10 tefachim deep, people will, no matter how wide it is, people sometimes do walk through it, even if it's easy to go around it. Rav Ashi says the same point, but in the opposite way. It's terech. We need both cases in the Mishnah. I would think to say, I would think to say that if this is wide 4 tefachim, so then it would be part of the Rosh Hashanah. If it's not wide 4 tefachim, so you know what happens then? Mifsi pasile. People can just easily jump right over it. If it's wide enough, you can't jump over it. So you have to walk through it to get to where you want to go without going around it. But if it's not wide, adarabah, that's when people skip it. They jump over it, and therefore it's not part of the Rosh Hashanah. So that's the chiddush of our Mishnah, that even in such a case, I say that people do walk through it even though it's easy to jump over it. So the Gemara says, V'azda Rav Ashi l'taimei. Rav Ashi is following his opinion that he said somewhere else. Dama Rav Ashi said, Haiman de Zorak, person throws from Rosh Hashanah and V'nach, and the item landed on the Rosh Hashanah where? Aguda de Gamla, on a plank on a bridge. So you have a bridge which is 16 tefachim wide, and there's one plank on the bridge which people don't usually walk over. It's positioned in a way that people don't walk over. Some Rishonim say that it's a loose plank in the bridge that people avoid, sort of. Mechayiv, but Rav Ashi says you'll still be chayiv. Shaharei rabim boikim boik. The fact is that people do walk through it, people do step on that plank as well, and therefore you'll be chayiv there as well. Same thing over here with the water, that even though people do sometimes jump over it, but enough people will walk into it, and therefore it's part of the Rosh Hashanah. Okay, the next Mishnah, continuing with the halachas regarding a yam. Hazayrik min hayam liyabasha. Person throws an item from the yam, which is a carmelis, onto dry land, into a Rosh Hashanah. Or min hayabasha, from the dry land, from Rosh Hashanah, liyam, into the yam, which is a carmelis. Min hayam l'sfina. or he's taking something from the water into a boat, or menasfina leyam, or from the boat into the water, or menasfina lechaverta. You're transferring from one boat to another boat on Shabbos. Potter. There'll be potter for all of this. None of this is a malacha. It's either going from a Rishus Rabban to a Carmelis, or from a Rishus Yachid to a Carmelis, or from one Rishus Yachid to another Rishus Yachid, which is not allowed if it's owned by two different people, or you didn't make an Eruvi Chatzeris, but you'll be potter. Sfina is kshura izu bezu. If you have boats that are tied one to another and there's no gap between the boats, they're tied together. Metaltlem izu lezu, you're allowed to carry from one to another if it's owned by the same person, or you made an Eruvi Chatzeris. If the two boats that are near each other are not tied together, even if they're right near each other and they're touching each other, you're not allowed to carry from one to another, as the Gemara will explain. Even if you made an Eruvi Chatzeris, still, because they're not tied, a gap could open up between them, which will render the Eruvi Chatzeris ineffective. Eruvi Chatzeris is only if there's no Carmelis in between. So therefore, you can't carry from one boat to another unless they're actually tied together. So now the Gemara will explain how a person would be allowed to get water from the yam, or if he wants to use drinking water, if it is drinking water, to bring onto the boat. If he's on a boat on Shabbos, how do you get the water up from the lake or the ocean? Not an ocean probably, because it's salty water, but from, I don't know.
Let's say he wants the water for another reason.
For another reason, exactly. So how are you going to get that water onto the boat? Itmer. So we learned the following argument. Svina, you're on a boat. Rav Huna Omar, Rav Huna says, the only thing you have to do is, Maitzin himena ziz kol shehu, you stick out a rod from your boat, umemala, and you can go and fill water from the lake and bring it onto the boat without a problem. What's the point of this rod? As we'll see in a moment, it's just about making a heker. It's making about just a kind of recognition to remind you, the Chachamim made this takana to make this heker of sticking out a rod. But the emes, it would be mutter without that. We'll see. Rav Chiste and Rabbi Barav Huna, both Rav Chiste and Rabbi Barav Huna say, no, you can't do that. You can't just stick out a rod. They say, oise mokim arba o memala. You have to actually create 4 partitions, like a full partition of 4 walls that you place into the water, and then inside those partitions where it's surrounded from all 4 sides and it becomes like a Rosh Yachid, then you could draw water from that place onto your boat, but not just sticking out a rod. So the Gemara explains. Rav Huna might say, man, is this called shur? Rav Huna says you could just stick out a rod or memala and you could fill up from there. Kasav, Rav Huna's opinion is Carmelis may adam ashchinon. The halach of a Carmelis, let me just explain before we go inside the Gemara here, the height of a Carmelis, just like a Rosh Hashanah, also goes only up until 10 tvachim. Above 10 tvachim, there's no Carmelis. Above 10 tvachim, it's a makim p'tur. So now when we measure the water here, from where are we measuring the height of this water? So he says, Me'adam ashchina, from the river bed, from the bottom under the water, that's where you measure its height. So therefore, va'avira makim p'turhu. When you're bringing up the water into the boat, that's a makim p'tur, that's above 10 tvachim. So you're bringing water from a makim p'tur into the boat, which is a Rishus HaYachid. You're allowed to carry from a makim p'tur into a Rishus HaYachid, not a problem. Ubedinu, and therefore really, chatchila al piadin, the ziz nami le'lebay. You shouldn't even need to stick out this rod to make any recognition. Ella, the only Chachamim made a takana to do this, kehechid lehevel akeda. They want you to have a heker to remember that you're not allowed to carry from a Rishus HaYachid into a Carmelis. It sort of looks like a Carmelis because the water has a din of a Carmelis below. You measure it from below. Over there it's a Carmelis, so it sort of looks like a Carmelis, so they made this halacha to make this heker. But otherwise, be'emes, it would be allowed. So therefore you can do it just with sticking out this rod. They both say, no, you have to actually create partitions and it should look like a Rosh Hashanah, and that's where you fill it up from. Kasavri, they hold Carmelis misfas mayim ashchinon. You measure the height of the Carmelis from the top of the water. That's where you measure its height. So maya aras smichte, the water is like a flat land. It's like yabasha, like dry land. So ilay ovid makam arba, if you're not going to create these 4 partitions, kametaltul mekarmelis Rosh Hashanah. You're carrying from a Carmelis to a Rosh Hashanah. It's not above 10 tvachim. You measure from the top of the water. So therefore, you have to create a partition that it should be carrying from one Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah.
Since when does water have a mamashis enough to make a landing zone? The whole Peitus and Mayim issue
That we said before, that the Mayim does not create any right. So that's benegayah to the depth of the boyer, whether it takes away the depth of the boyer.
Right.
But benegayah to the dimensions of its own rishus, to be considered as a rishus for itself.
If there's a nut on the water, then it's not considered
If it's
a nut on the water.
So the nut on the so that's another thing we had about water. The nut on the water, the point is that it's floating and it's just not stable. It's not settled. So that's and water legabe another rishus, to be mevatel another rishus, it's not mevatel another rishus. But legabe itself, that it is a carmelis, the water is a
surface.
That's its surface, and that's what it is. Yeah. So now Rav Nachman said, according to Rabbi bar Rav Huna and Rav Huna, that said that the Omar, again, Omar Rav Nachman Rabbi bar Rav Huna. Rav Nachman said to Rabbi bar Rav Huna, Ula Rav Huna, according to Rav Huna that said, the Omar, Maitzi Emena Zis Kolshu, all you have to do is just stick out a rod, and then you could fill up the water from there. Zimnin the lekasare the komatal mekamas yachid. The basis of his whole opinion is that looking at the bottom, the riverbed all the way at the bottom, it's already 10 tefachim deep, and therefore this is a malkim ptur. It's above 10 tefachim, but maybe the ship is floating in a place where it's not 10 tefachim deep. Amalei. So he answered, no. Gamrinon, we know the ein sfina malechas b'pachas masara. We're talking over here about a big ship. And therefore, a ship does not travel exactly in a place that's less than 10 tefachim because it's submerged, the heaviness, it's submerged into the water and it doesn't travel in a place less than 10 tefachim. But the Gemara says, wait a minute, it's possible maybe that by the edges of the ship, v'hamurshe islay, a boat is usually, a ship is not usually like a box, square box. It slants, at the ends of it, it slants up. And maybe from that, even if the ship were in the middle, where it's submerged into the water, it has to be 10 tefachim deep in order to be able to float. But at the edges of it, maybe over there, it's not 10 tefachim deep. And when you carry from the water into the boat, it's a place where it's not 10 tefachim deep. So the Gemara says, no, that's not the case. Why not? Amirav Safrik Shushi Ozle Kamo. They have sailors that stand at the edges of the boat, and they are standing with rods going into the water to make sure that they're not going to get to a place that's not going to be 10 tefachim deep, because then they're going to get stuck. So therefore, even at the edges of the boat where it comes up, and it's not submerged so deeply in the ground, still they have sticks in the ground to make sure that it's not going to go into a place where it's going to get stuck over there. Okay, we'll stop over there for today.